Happy Monday. Welcome back to Screen Reel. Hopefully, your go to source for all things movies and TV. I'm your host. My name is Evan Olasco, and we are about to embark on the most exciting journey through the world of entertainment. I promise I'll make it as exciting as possible. As exciting as I can. I think this episode might be the best one yet. I feel like I really did my homework on this one. And I do have a couple of things to say beforehand. So I decided to retire the weekend box office segment. I feel like, I guess for now, it doesn't make much sense. Mainly because I want to be able to record these episodes at least like 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So if I cover the weekend box office, I have to wait until Sunday night to record them, which is not at all practical. So unfortunately, I had to drop it. I was really excited to do that, but I had to drop it. And the other thing, look, I'm trying to get a new theme song for this podcast, so please don't get used to the simple little jingle that I have. It's not what I wanted. It's not it was just an old thing that I made last year. Then I just decided to recycle it for here. So it's mainly just a placeholder. This episode I talk about ending on a high note, the importance of having a good ending, whether in a movie or a TV show. And I talk about 5 movies specifically, but I do go over a couple other ones. I do give some mentions. Some of the movies I haven't seen in a couple of years, some of the movies I talk about, so I may have forgotten some of the details. But apart from that, I think this was a very solid episode. And I hope you enjoy it. Also, yesterday, I went to go watch The Whale for the first time, and that movie was really good. I like movies that take place in one setting because the entire movie, basically like 95 to 99% of the movie, took place in Brendan Fraser's character. Brendan Fraser plays a character named Charlie. The entire movie basically takes place in Charlie's apartment. And man, I was hooked throughout the entire thing. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. But anyways, look, without further ado, sit back, relax, and get ready for your weekly dose of Screen Reel. Hello, mic check. Awesome. We're live. Okay, so what makes a good ending? What makes a bad ending? How does a movie end on a high note? So the way I'm going to structure this is I want to give my thoughts on, the 2 previous questions. What makes a good ending and what makes a bad ending? And then I have 5 movies that I personally think have great endings. And then I'll sort of talk about why I feel like they have great endings. And I tried to keep the movies as diverse as possible. I got a mystery thriller in there, got a drama, a romance movie, some action sci-fi movies. So what makes a good ending? Does it subvert your expectations? Is it an ending that you don't see coming? Is a good ending an ending that has to satisfy you? Should it be something that you do see coming? Should it be an ending that fulfills how you thought the movie or TV show should end? Or should it be ambiguous? Is an ending that's spelled out for you boring? Is it good to know exactly where and how this story ends? Or should an ending make you feel conflicted? Like if your favorite character dies in a movie or TV show, but it makes for the best ending story-wise, is it still a good ending? I mean, if one of my characters, and I've watched a lot of media where the end, it wasn't the ending that I wanted, but it was the ending that made sense. Does a good ending make you want more? Is the ending so good that you want to see more of the characters and of the world that they occupy? These are the questions that I have. I feel like in a lot of great movie endings, it should fit one of these categories. So I wanted to quickly talk about, for example, the ending of the second season of For All Mankind. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it yet. Gordo and Tracy die. Now that ending, it subverted my expectations because I did not expect for Gordo and Tracy to die. It made me conflicted because these were, well, at least Gordo was my favorite character, but also I loved the relationships and interaction between Gordo and Tracy throughout the season. At the beginning of the season, they're sort of broken apart. Gordo has gained a lot of weight. He's depressed. She thinks so highly of herself. And then through the journey, through the entire season, they learn to love each other again and they become better characters than they were previously in season one, but they died. But that's what the story was building up to. And it did, in a way, it did feel satisfying. When you get an ending like that, it grounds the show or movie or whatever you're watching. If you're getting an ending like that, it does give the movie or show a stronger sense of verisimilitude. It grounds it in reality. And even though it wasn't the ending that I wanted, because I did not want to see these characters die, I feel like it was a good ending. So there's sort of a conflict there. And then I also want to quickly talk about Memento, The Prestige, Inception. These are endings that are ambiguous, right? Endings that make you think for a bit, and it may subvert your expectations, but they're primarily endings that don't give you a direct answer as to what exactly happened, as to where the story ended up, right? Inception, we see his token thing spinning, the top, and it keeps spinning, and then you don't know if it's going to continue spinning or if it's going to topple over. So we don't know if this is a dream or if this is real life. Did he actually reunite with his children? Now, what makes a bad ending? Again, I want to bring up, does it subvert your expectations in a way that is not consistent with the story that has been unfolding throughout the entire movie or TV show, right? So subverting your expectations could make a good ending or it could make a bad ending. Is it unsatisfactory? Is the ending exactly what you thought it would be? Was it paint by numbers? Did you see it coming a mile away? So once again, I mean, if you have an ending that you saw coming, does that make it boring? Does the ending feel forced? Does the result of all the events that have unfolded throughout the entire story, does that result come unnaturally? For example, How I Met Your Mother. The ending of that show did subvert my expectations. But at the same time, in my opinion, it wasn't consistent with the story that had been building up throughout the entire show, especially throughout the last season. Now, I'm not talking about, again, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the show, I'm not talking about the mother dying. I think that is a good way that the show subverted my expectations and at the same time grounded the show in reality. But when the entire final season was about Barney and Robin's wedding, you as a viewer have devoted so much of your time into this plot line, and then at the very last second, they undo the entire thing. That is a way that they subverted my expectations in a way that wasn't satisfactory. The Office is another example. And I know I'm talking a lot about TV shows right now, but I sort of wanted to get some TV shows in. And I think for television series, it is so hard to nail the finale. In the season finale of The Office, they do a time jump to 1 year later and they catch up with the cast. And there's this scene where the entire cast is on a stage and then Aaron's parents are in the crowd, and that completely just felt unnatural. It felt forced. Another plot line that I think felt forced and unnatural was Jim quitting Athlete, the company that he helped found. It felt forced. At least to me, it did. And it did not make sense with the way we saw Jim throughout the entire final season. He was so devoted to this company, only for at the last second, he was just willing to throw it all away. It might all depend on execution. But not quickly, I want to move on, and I have 5 movies that I want to talk about that I feel, again, from my personal experience watching it, that they had a very good ending, a satisfactory ending. And the 5 movies that I'm going to talk about are Memento, Whiplash, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Titanic, and Avengers Endgame. So let me jump into Memento real quick here. Now, the story of Memento, the way Christopher Nolan decided to tell the story, to me is really cool because the ending of the movie is actually the middle of the story, because we get these scenes in color and we get these scenes that are in black and white. And the scenes that are in color, they're being told backwards. And then the scenes that are in black and white are being told forwards to where they finally meet at the end. And what's really, really cool is that we start a scene in black and white and then it slowly turns into color and you don't even notice it until you notice it. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm probably not explaining that correctly. But the ending of that movie is the middle of the story. And what I liked about that ending is it unraveled everything that I thought I knew about the story and about the main character. The main character, Leonard, is the protagonist of the movie, but maybe he isn't all that good. So to me, it changed the context of everything that I saw for the past 2 hours of the movie. The movie starts off with Leonard killing Teddy. He shoots him in the head. That's how the movie starts. Throughout the entire film, we are very suspicious of Teddy. He is supposedly John G., the guy that killed his wife and caused him to have this short-term memory loss. So throughout the entire movie, we're so suspicious of him. Oh, it's that guy. We saw him kill him. And in the ending of the movie, the main character, Leonard, is sitting in his car because he had just thrown Teddy's keys into this bush. So Teddy is looking for his car keys. So Leonard is sitting in this other car and he has this internal monologue that maybe he has to lie to himself or else he'll never be able to move on. So he takes down Teddy's license plate, which is the license plate that we've seen throughout the entire movie that belongs to the killer. He takes down Teddy's license plate. He has a picture of Teddy, and then he writes that he shouldn't believe his lies. And what Leonard is telling himself in this internal monologue is maybe he has to put the blame on somebody. He has to have a scapegoat, and that scapegoat is Teddy. So it completely changes the way you saw the entire movie, because everything he's been doing has been built on this lie that he's been telling himself. And then it makes you think about this other aspect of the film. During the black and white scenes, we get backstory on this other character named Sammy Jenkins. In the story, Sammy Jenkins accidentally killed his wife because he also had short-term memory loss. And his wife wanted to test that he really did have short-term memory loss. So she would turn the clocks back, like she did it 3 or 4 times, turn the clock back to the time when it was time for her to get her insulin shot. So Sammy Jenkins, he did it 1 time, and then she turned the clock back. She told him, it's time for my insulin shot. Then he did it a 2nd time. And then she turned the clocks back again, and then he gave her the injection a 3rd time. And then I don't remember if he did it a 4th time, but she overdosed on insulin, and she died. So then it makes you think, is the story of Sammy Jenkins actually the story of Leonard, right? Did he accidentally kill his wife due to his short-term memory loss? And he can't live with that guilt, so he has to create this story that somebody killed her. It's a very ambiguous ending that makes you think. It subverts your expectations. I think it's an amazing ending. It's a perfect ending, especially to just the weird way the story is structured. Whiplash. Whiplash is the story of a young drummer who is trying to prove himself to this hard-ass professor named Fletcher, played by J.K. Simmons. Throughout the entire movie, Fletcher gives Andrew, the main character, the young drummer, Fletcher gives Andrew a hard time, and he is the biggest asshole. And Andrew is just doing his best, trying his best, but it's never enough for Fletcher. Now, what did I like about the ending? Well, Andrew finally proves to Fletcher that he is a good enough drummer, which is what he was trying to do throughout the entire film. The movie ends with the entire band on stage, and Andrew Neiman, he takes over the drums on stage and starts drumming. Without any cue from Fletcher, it completely catches Fletcher off guard, and he just keeps drumming. He cues in the it's not the cello, I think it's the double bass, and then eventually all the other instruments, the piano, they all start coming in, and Andrew is the one in charge at that point. He's the one leading and conducting the band, not Fletcher. The entire ending scene is a musical number. There's no dialogue except for the few lines that J.K. Simmons says, like when Andrew first starts to hit the drums and catches Fletcher off guard. He says he is going to fuck him up, and then like a little later on in the show, Fletcher goes up to him and he's like, Neiman, what are you doing, man? Apart from that, there's no dialogue, and yet I'm riveted the entire time. To me, what makes this a good ending is that it flips the roles of the two main characters. Like I said previously, Andrew conducts. He is the one in charge, while Fletcher, he's kind of sidelined. And we see the character growth that Andrew has gone through the entire film. And that one line that I just brought up where Fletcher asks Andrew what he's doing, that's probably the first time in the entire film where we truly see Fletcher in a vulnerable state because he has no idea what's going on. Even in the scene where Andrew and Fletcher are sitting at the table together, Fletcher pretends like he doesn't know what Andrew did to him. But as we soon find out, Fletcher did know. The story and the journey of both of these characters throughout the entire movie, to me, was beautifully paid off. Especially with that last look that they give each other. It's like a couple of seconds before the screen goes black, they cut to Andrew's eyes, and then they cut to Fletcher's eyes, and they're just looking at each other. And Fletcher smiles, but because the entire screen is just their eyes, we only see Fletcher's eyes, but we can tell he's smiling, but we don't even see the smile. The entire movie is built upon the relationship between the student and the teacher. And then we finally see the underdog, Andrew Neiman, win. So to me, that was a satisfying ending. It was satisfying. Did it subvert my expectations? Was it something that I didn't see coming? Not really, but it did satisfy me. It was not ambiguous at all, and it did not make me feel conflicted. It was just satisfying. We saw what we wanted, in a way. We wanted Neiman to reach his goal, to be the drummer that he wanted to be. And it was satisfying to see that unfold. Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is the third movie of the original Star Wars trilogy. It came out in 1983, and throughout the entire trilogy, we have a singular main villain in Darth Vader. And what I personally liked about the ending of Return of the Jedi, because it wasn't just the ending of Return of the Jedi, it was the ending of the entire Star Wars trilogy, the entire Star Wars saga up to that point. We saw the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. We see Anakin Skywalker as a Force ghost at the end, standing with Obi-Wan and Yoda. And Return of the Jedi is somewhat of a somber film, especially the scene in Palpatine's throne. The ending is, in a way, a happy ending. We see the entire galaxy celebrating the downfall of Darth Vader and Palpatine, but we also see the redemption of this villain. And again, we see him as the Force ghost, and that look that Luke Skywalker and his father give each other. To me, it really hits me in the feels. The ending of the previous movie, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, left off on somewhat of a cliffhanger, because it's revealed to the audience that Darth Vader is Luke's father, but there's no conclusion to that. That is sort of left as a loose plot line. And then we also don't know what's going to happen to Han Solo. So the ending of Return of the Jedi wraps up all those loose plot lines perfectly, in my opinion. Now, when I first watched the movies, I was not expecting Darth Vader to get redeemed. I was not expecting Darth Vader to save Luke from Palpatine's electric powers. So for me, it did subvert my expectations. And at the same time, it was the ending that I wanted, right? I did not expect the movie to end that way, but it was the way that I wanted it to end. Throughout the entire movie, we see Luke struggle to try to turn his father back to the good side, back to the light side. And we see the hero win. And that scene between Luke and Darth Vader, where Vader is dying and he asks him to take his mask off, and Luke doesn't want to because he knows it'll kill him, and Anakin just says, "Let me look at my son with my own eyes." I think it's a great ending. Titanic. I think it's become somewhat of a cool thing to hate on Titanic lately and hate on a lot of James Cameron's achievements. But the truth is, Titanic is a really, really good movie. It may not be a movie that I would It may not be a movie that I would regularly seek out, but even I can admit it's a really good movie. And that includes the ending. The ending of Titanic, we see a young Rose walking through the halls of the Titanic, walking up the staircase, and seeing Jack standing there waiting for her. To me, that is a satisfying ending because we saw this relationship between Jack and Rose throughout the entire movie, and they were separated by death, and then at the end we see them reunite again. And to me, it's somewhat ambiguous because I don't know what James Cameron's intention was for the ending, but to me, I feel like it makes me ask the question, did Rose die, and is this the afterlife? Is this some sort of heaven, or is this just a dream that Rose has? I don't know. But after seeing the destruction of the Titanic, and we saw a lot of those familiar places on the ship just completely destroyed, we get to see it again, all put together. Everything looks nice. And again, it looks kind of heavenly in there. And it did not subvert my expectations. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it's not like it subverted any expectations because I had no expectations. Did it make me want more? No. To me, the story wrapped up perfectly. It was satisfying. And then the last movie that I want to talk about, Avengers Endgame. I don't think I have to say much about the ending of Avengers Endgame. The entire movie was actually an ending to the Infinity Saga that started back in 2008 with the first Iron Man movie. But the very ending of the movie, did it subvert my expectations? In some ways it did, in other ways it didn't. For example, going into Endgame, I feel like a lot of people, including myself, had an inkling that someone major would die. Going into Avengers Endgame, I wasn't going to be surprised if Tony Stark or Steve Rogers died. And spoiler alert, Tony Stark died. But at the same time, we see Steve Rogers stay in the past to be with Peggy Carter, which is the last shot of the entire movie. We see them dancing in their living room. That is something that I did not expect. And this is an ending that did leave me conflicted because Tony Stark and Steve Rogers are the two main characters of not just their own movies, but of the entire cinematic universe. So it did leave me conflicted because this was the perfect ending. The first time we see Tony Stark in the first Iron Man, he is this selfish billionaire playboy. We see this arrogance of the character evolve, and I don't think the Tony Stark from the first Iron Man movie would have sacrificed himself the way he did in Endgame. It was perfect character growth, and it was a perfect conclusion. And the same thing with Steve Rogers. Throughout the entire cinematic universe, since his first appearance, he has been this selfless hero, putting others before him. And we finally, just this once, we get to see him be a little selfish in a good way. He finally gets the happy ending that he wanted since he went down into the ice at the end of World War II. But that would mean that they are no longer going to be part of the story moving forward. So it is conflicting, but at the same time satisfying. And it did subvert some of my expectations. And then obviously this isn't part of the story, but to me, the very, very, very ending in those visual credits where we see each of the cast members sign off their name, dude, that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. So yeah, these are just 5 of the many movies that I think have great endings. And it's interesting that each of them are great endings for a different reason. I think in order to have a good ending, it has to be a perfect mixture of many things. Like, do you care about the characters in the story? Because if you don't care, if you don't care about who the characters are, you're not going to care about what happens to them. Does the story warrant a happy ending? If it's a very somber movie, maybe. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer, but it's interesting to think about. And that pretty much sums up my thoughts. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed my little discussion on the importance of movies and TV ending on a high note. Honestly, there aren't a lot of endings that I don't like in general. I never have a problem really with how movies end, but every once in a while you do get a movie that ends in such a memorable way that you like. These are movies that are like, when I decided to make this the main topic, these are the movies that sort of popped into my mind as I was brainstorming. And I did try to keep it diverse. I know there wasn't any animated movie in there, but honestly, I don't watch a lot of animated movies. I should probably watch more, but what you gonna do? But yeah, look, don't forget to tune in next week for more reviews, box office analyses, industry insights, whatever may come. And I am planning on, for example, Ant-Man 3 is coming out in a couple of weeks. So in the weeks leading up to Ant-Man 3, I want to sort of do a retrospective on each of the Ant-Man movies that we've gotten. The same thing for Creed 3. The weeks leading up to it, I want to do a retrospective on the movies. And the same thing for any movie coming up. I think that'll be interesting to talk about and just see how we got to the point that we are at now. And also, look, don't forget to follow the podcast on Instagram. It's at Screen Reel Podcast on Instagram. And then the podcast is available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And also, I have the video version on my YouTube channel if you want to watch it. It's under the channel. Well, the channel name is just my full name, Ever Nolasco. And it's not technically a video podcast. It's really just like the captions are on the screen. Look, I feel like I have a face for radio, so that's why I don't want to show my face, but also I don't have a cool setup or anything. But eventually I do want to transition the YouTube version of it to actually have video. I feel like it would be more visually pleasing if I can learn to clean up a bit my face. Anyways, as always, thank you for listening and supporting the show. Until next time, I'm Evan Olasco, and this is Screen Reel.